In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make the Flutter and Bloom blanket. In this 4-part series, I'll guide you step by step through creating this beautiful blanket made up of floral and butterfly inspired squares. In this final tutorial for the Flutter and Bloom blanket, we're going to be doing the border. So for the border, you're going to need all 3 of your colours, and I'm going to be using my 4mm crochet hook, or you can use whichever hook you've used for the rest of your blanket. You are also going to need your stitch markers, so you want 18 in total, and 4 of those want to be slightly different to the rest so that you can really indicate where all 4 of your corners are. Okay, let's get started. So you now have all of your squares joined. I'm going to be demonstrating just on these 2 squares here, but obviously yours is going to be a lot bigger. Now I would suggest, even though you have or should have blocked your squares prior to this to get them all to the same size, you may want to block your blanket now that it's been joined as well, just to make it super nice and neat on the corners and across the edges, but that's totally up to you. I just find that I like to do that because it helps when it comes to the border. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started with the first round. So for the border, there's going to be 9 rounds altogether. We aren't going to be turning on the majority of these rounds. It's only on the last 2 rounds that we're actually going to turn, but obviously I'll show you that as we work throughout. So for the first round, we're going to be using our main colour, and we're going to join in any of the outer corner spaces. So we're going to go ahead and create a slip knot, and you can do this in whichever method you prefer. Insert your hook, and we're going to join with a slip stitch into any corner chain 1 space. So I can see my corner here. I have my 2 stitches, chain 1 and 2 stitches. So I'm going to join in the corner space with a slip stitch, like so. So in this corner space, we're going to begin by chaining 3, 1, 2, and 3, and this is going to count as a half treble crochet, which is a US half double crochet, plus a chain 1. So a half double crochet, US half treble crochet, and a chain 1. We're then going to do a half treble into that same chain 1 space. So it's yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through. You'll have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. And there we have our first stitches. So you want to go ahead and find your corner stitch and mark it with your corner stitch marker. So we've got chain 2, and then the 3rd chain is counting as the chain 1. So that just makes it easy for now to know where your corner chain 1 space is. So we now have our corner stitches, and these corner stitches are actually going to increase the amount of stitches that we have in this round. So we're going to have 55 stitches per square, and then we have these extra ones in this particular square because it's a corner square. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work over those 55 stitches, and that will take us right up to this stitch just before the chain, the corner space just here where the join is. But we will have 56 stitches on this edge. Ignoring that first stitch in the chain 1, we have an extra stitch just here. The reason why I bring this up is because I want you to be marking each of your 50 stitches. This will just make it really easy when it comes to counting your stitches. It will save you having to go back to the beginning and count hundreds of stitches. So just trust me, this will make your life so much easier. So we're going to do 55 stitches, but remember when you're counting that 50th stitch that we also have a stitch here. So if you start counting from 1, for example, mark it in your 54th stitch, and then we can do 50 stitches from there on. So we're going to do a half treble into that very first stitch, and then each stitch across all the way until you get to that seam, and you're going to mark your 50th stitch to make things easier for yourself. So go ahead, pause the video, work those half treble crochets, which are US half doubles, in each stitch all the way across, and I'll meet you at the seam. So now that you've worked your way up to the seam, this is my 50th stitch along this edge. We're going to look at what we're going to do here. So we have the chain 1 here, the seam and the chain 1. We're actually going to miss all of those and find that first stitch. So that is the chain 1 space, and then we have the first stitch just here. So we're going to go straight into there with our next stitch, and this is where you can start counting from your you want to make sure that you have 55 stitches essentially across each square, but then you also might want to go back and just count your 50 stitches in between your stitch markers. Once you've done those stitch markers, it makes it easier for the next rounds. So we're going to go ahead and work our way across, doing the same in the next seam. Work your way across that final square, and then that will bring you to the corner where you can come back and I will show you how to work that corner. Don't worry if you have a bit of a gap just here. This is why I asked you to leave your tail end when you did your joining, because we can use that at the end to kind of sew that up and reduce that space that you get just here, that gap, and it makes it nice and neat. So go ahead, work your way across, working 1 half treble, which is a US half double crochet. Just a reminder, you're going to have 55 stitches per square, and then we're going to be adding an additional stitch in the corner, and you want to have a stitch marker every 50 stitches. Now in the written pattern, I have done a chart of how many stitches you will have on the short sides and on the long sides, so you can refer to that, because you will do 50 stitches, and then you will just have an odd number left over, but still it makes it easier to place your stitch markers. So work your way across, and then I'll show you what to do in this next corner. So now that you've worked your way to the corner, we're going to work into this chain 1 space, and we're going to do a half treble, which is a US half double, a chain 1 and a half treble. And then we're going to want to mark that chain 1. I'm just going to go into the chain 1 space. That's all that's really necessary for this particular round. So marking that chain 1 space. And then you're just going to do the same across the next edge. So remembering that we have increased at this corner, so you're going to start in that very first stitch with a half treble and work all the way across, placing your stitch marker in your 50 stitches. So when you go to the next edge, you're going to start from number 1 again to 50, and just let these last few stitches count on top of your blocks of 50, if that makes sense. So you're going to work your way all the way around, doing that half treble, which is a US half double, chain 1 and half treble into the corner space, and then you're going to work all the way until you get to this last stitch just before this first corner that we've made. So go ahead, pause the video, make sure that you are counting. If it makes it easier, just make sure that you're doing those 55 stitches per block, and then you could always go back in and put these in after. So pause the video and then meet me back once you're ready. So now that you've worked your way around, we're at that first corner. We have our stitch marker in our chain 1, and I'm going to go ahead and find that second chain from that initial chain 3 and join with a slip stitch. So that is the end of round 1. We're then going to move on to round 2. I'm going to remove this stitch marker. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch into that chain 1 space just to move across, because this is where we want to start. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That again counts as a half treble, which is a US half double, and a chain 1. So I'm just going to pop that stitch marker in that chain 1, and then we're going to do a half treble into that same chain space for the corner. So this is a super easy round. We're going to just do those half trebles into each stitch. So starting in that first stitch and then half treble into each stitch all the way across. You want to get to your stitch marker and then move that stitch marker up to your 50 stitches. So make sure that you're still counting. Obviously, for this section, we're going to add an extra one. So you should finish in the stitch before and then move it up. You're going to work your way all the way across. There's no seams to miss this time. You just go straight into your stitches. And then once you've worked your way across and got to your corner stitch marker, meet me back and I'll just show you what to do in this corner. So we've now worked our way across. I have reached the corner and then in this corner, we're going to work that half treble, chain one and half treble, which is half double, chain one, half double in US terms. So I'm again going to mark that corner chain one space with my stitch marker and then continue down the next edge. So remember when you're doing your first stitch, because we're working in rounds, you might just need to pull this corner stitch round slightly just to get into that very first stitch. If you're finding that you're getting to your stitch marker and you're ending on 50 when you first start, you've not done your first stitch in the right stitch. So you might just need to shift it back one and then you'll end in the stitch before your stitch marker. So go ahead, do that all the way around, working your corners all the way till you get back to the beginning corner and then meet me back once you're ready. So now that you've worked your way round, you're going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch into that second chain from the chain three, and you're going to go ahead and fasten off. Again, we're not going to turn. We're going to take our contrast colour B and we're going to create a slip knot and place it on our hook. So we're going to start in the corner stitch or the corner space. And we're going to start off with a standing double crochet, which is a standing single crochet in the US. So we're going to insert our hook into that corner space, yarn over, pull up a loop. We'll have 2 loops on the hook and yarn over, pull through 2. And that is our standing double crochet. We're then going to do 2 more double crochets, which is a US single crochets in that same corner space, 1 and 2. So now instead of chaining 1 in the corner, we're going to work 3 stitches in the corner, and I'm going to place my stitch marker into that second double crochet, or the first double crochet that we make, because this is a standing double crochet. But either way, we want that in that middle stitch. So now we're going to go ahead and work 1 double crochet in each stitch all the way across. Remember that first double crochet starts in that first stitch, so you might just need to pull across the corner stitches in order to work in there. You're going to work all the way across until you get to the next corner. Meet me back and I'll show you what to do in the corner before you carry on with your next side. So now that we've come to the corner space, we're going to work 3 stitches in there, 1, 2 and 3, and we're going to mark our corner stitch, which is that middle one of the 3, with our stitch marker. And then you're going to continue all the way around, working 1 stitch into each stitch and 3 stitches into the corner. Pause the video and then meet me back once you get to the beginning. So once you've worked your way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch into the top of that standing double crochet, standing single crochet in US terms, and you're going to go ahead and fasten off. So now we're going to work round 4. So you want to make sure that round 4, after we've done the corner, we're going to be working across one of the shorter edges, because across the longer edges we are going to be making 1 decrease. So we want to start off on a shorter edge. So we're going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch into that marked corner stitch. And we're going to go ahead and chain 2, which is going to count as our first half treble. And then we're going to do 2 half trebles, which is a US half doubles in that very same corner stitch. And then we're going to mark the middle stitch with our stitch marker. So we're going to go ahead and work a half treble all the way across to that next corner space, again making sure that this first edge that you're working across is one of the shorter edges. Work your way across to the corner, and then I'll show you what we're going to do on the long edge. So I've just worked my way to the corner stitch where I'm going to work 3 half trebles, which is US half doubles, and then I'm going to start working down this next edge. Now we're going to work 1 stitch into each stitch. However, somewhere across this edge we're going to work 1 decrease. So I will do mine here so you can see what it looks like. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that next stitch, yarn over and pull through. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through. You'll have 5 loops on the hook, and then yarn over, pull through all 5 loops on the hook. And then we've just reduced that stitch down to 1. So just be mindful of that when you're marking your 50th stitch. In fact, I have forgotten to mark my corner stitch just here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then just carry on working 1 stitch into each stitch all the way across. So you're going to do that to your next stitch marker. You'll work your corner, you'll work your short edge as normal, no decreases, and then you'll work your corner again, and then across your long edge again you're going to do 1 decrease at some point across that edge. Work your way around and then meet me back once you get to the beginning. So once you've worked your way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch to the top of that first stitch, which is the chain 2 from the beginning, and we're going to go ahead and fasten off. We're now going to take our contrast colour C, so the second contrast colour, and we're going to go ahead and make a slip knot on the hook, and we're going to begin in that corner, marked corner stitch, and we're going to do a standing double crochet followed by 2 double crochets, which is a standing single crochet and 2 single crochets in US terms. So 3 stitches in that stitch, mark that central stitch, and we're just going to do 1 stitch in every stitch all the way around. So 1 stitch in each stitch all the way around. And in your corners, your corner stitches, you're going to do 3 stitches in those corners. So a really nice simple round. Go ahead, pause the video, work back to the beginning, and then meet me back once you're ready. So now that you've worked your way all the way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch to that first stitch, which was the standing double crochet, US standing single crochet, and you're going to go ahead and fasten off. So we're now going to join in this corner stitch again. We're going to be using our main colour. And we're going to join with a slip stitch, chain 2, which counts as a half treble, US half double, and then work 2 half treble, US half doubles in that corner stitch. And then 1 half treble US half double in each stitch all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and mark that corner stitch. So again, another simple round, you're going to do 1 half treble US half double in each stitch all the way around, working 3 stitches in the corner stitch. So go ahead, pause the video, work your way around to the beginning, and then meet me back once you're ready. So once you've worked your way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch into that second chain, or the top of the chain 2 from the beginning. And you're going to fasten off and then we're going to use our contrast colour B, and then we're going to join in this corner stitch with a standing double crochet, which is a standing single crochet in US terms. So we'll find that central stitch. I've taken the stitch marker out too early. We'll go into there and work your standing double crochet, and then work 2 more double crochets into that stitch. And then mark that central stitch with your stitch marker. And then again, this is a really easy round. You're going to work 1 stitch into each stitch all the way around. So that's a double crochet, which is US single crochet. And then into the corner stitches, you're going to work 3 stitches. Work all the way around and then join with a slip stitch into this very first standing double crochet. So go ahead, pause the video, work your way round, and then meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so I have fastened off. What we're going to do at the end of round 7 is actually turn our work. So for the first time, we're going to turn, and we're going to be working back the opposite way. So what we want to do is we want to create a slip knot with our contrast colour C. And we're going to be starting in the second chain from a corner stitch. So here's a corner stitch, then we have 1 and then 2. So 2 stitches from a corner stitch. And we're going to work a standing double crochet, which is a standing single crochet in that very first stitch, like so. So in this next stitch now, we're going to do a double treble, which is a US treble. So yarn over the hook twice, insert our hook into that next stitch, yarn over, pull through, we'll have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, you'll have 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, you'll have 2 loops, and yarn over, pull through 2, and then that is that stitch completed. In the next stitch, we're going to do a double crochet, which is US single crochet. And that kind of pulls that stitch down. So this is why we're turning our work, because we want our texture to be on the on the right side of the work. And then we have our pattern repeat. So we're going to do a double crochet, which is US single crochet, into that next stitch. And what that does is that creates the texture on the right side of the work. That's why we're working the opposite way. And then we're going to do that double treble, which is a US treble crochet, again in that next stitch. And that's what we're going to do all the way across. So it's a UK double, US single crochet into the next stitch, and a UK double treble, which is a US treble, into the next stitch, all the way across to the marked corner stitch. So repeat that all the way to the next corner, and then meet me back and I'll show you what to do in the corner itself. Okay, so I've worked my way to the next corner stitch, and in this corner stitch we're going to do a double crochet, which is US single crochet, a double treble, which is a US treble, and a double crochet, all in that same corner stitch. So your corner stitch is now going to be that double treble. So we can go ahead and mark that. And then we're going to work a double treble into the next stitch. before starting our pattern repeat again. So it's double crochet into that next stitch, US single crochet, and then double treble into the next stitch, and then double crochet, etc., and double treble. So you'll do that all the way to the next corner. You'll work that double crochet, double treble crochet and double crochet into that corner stitch, and then just keep working your way round until you get to the last corner. Work that corner and then meet me back. I'll show you how to finish off this round. So I've just worked my way round. I've just done this last double treble, and I'm going to go ahead and remove my stitch marker from my corner stitch. I will do my corner stitch as I have been doing, so the double crochet, US single crochet, double treble, which is a US treble, and then double crochet, US single crochet. That just leaves us with one stitch remaining where we're going to do that double treble into US treble. And then I'm going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch to that very first stitch, which was a standing double crochet, and fasten off. We're then going to turn the work, and then we're going to take our main colour and create our slip knots, and we're going to start in the second double crochet from the corner. So this is our corner stitch. We have a double crochet here, and then this is our second one here. We're going to join with a slip stitch in that stitch, and then we're going to chain 3, which counts as a treble crochet, which is a US double crochet. We're going to work a treble crochet into that same stitch, and then we're going to start a pattern repeat. So we're going to skip the next stitch and then 2 treble crochets into that double crochet. So remember, that's a US double crochet that we're working now. And we're just going to repeat that all the way until we get to the corner stitch. So we're going to skip a stitch and then work 2 treble crochets, which is US double crochets, into that next stitch. Skip a stitch, 2 trebles, US doubles. So you want to go ahead, pause the video, work your way across until you get to the next corner, and then meet me back and I'll show you what to do at that point. So now that we've got to the corner stitch, all we're going to do is chain 1, skip that stitch, and then continue with that pattern repeat. So just working those 2 stitches in every other stitch. So that's simply all we do in the corners. So you're going to continue that all the way round. When you get to your corner stitch, you're going to chain 1 and then carry on. So go ahead, pause the video, work until you get to your last corner, and then meet me back once you're ready. So now you've worked your way round, you're at your last corner. You're going to work your corner as you have done. You're going to chain 1 and then do skip a stitch and work your 2 trebles into that next stitch. And then you're going to join with a slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 from the beginning of your round, and then you can go ahead and fasten off. So now all you have left to do is sew in your ends, and I do just want to show you what you can do at this section, because we want to kind of close that gap a little bit to make it look a bit neater. So I'm going to use that tail end, and then I'm just going to come in the stitch and then go into the next stitch. Doesn't really matter where that placement is, as long as you're just closing up that gap just there. So you can come through, and then you can go ahead and fasten off. And then that just closes that up nicely. And then you just have your other ends to sew in. And if you wanted to, you can go ahead and block your work as well, just to make it super nice and crisp. But there we have the Flutter and Bloom blanket. I really hope that you have enjoyed making this blanket. I hope you love the border with this gorgeous texture here. Please make sure that you do tag me in your progress pictures or your finished makes on social media. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you liked this pattern, then you might also like this one too.